Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Pick a Piece reading. Before we begin, I want you to just let your eyes wander across the three pieces of artworks in front of you, and one of them is probably going to catch your eye or catch your attention before you can even explain why. And that's the point. It's not that one is better, and it's not that one is the correct choice. It's just because something about the piece quietly asks you to look a little longer. And notice that moment. The instant your gaze settles, your curiosity will follow. That's where this experience begins. In front of you are the three small works, 1, 2, and 3. So take a moment, look at them before I say anything else. Now, don't overthink this. Don't try to choose the right one. Each one has their particular message, and the one that your gaze fell on is the one that's meant for you. So just notice which piece keeps pulling your attention. Is it the first one, the second one, or the third one? There's usually a moment when your eyes settle somewhere before your mind even catches up. So pay attention, because that's the piece I want you to choose. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a reading, but it's not going to be about your future or what's coming next. We're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the piece you chose and asking a different question. And that question is, why this one? Why did your eye land here? Out of all three pieces, why did your attention stop here? So let's begin. So if you chose the first piece, the first thing I notice right here, piece 1, is how much space this piece allows itself. It's not crowded, it's not rushing. The structure stands upright, almost like something that's been built over time. And then beside it sits this copper circle. And it catches the eye immediately, not because it's loud or big, but just because it's different. And what's interesting about this structure also is that this circle is not attached to the structure. It's near it and close enough that it really matters. It's separate enough to be noticed. This piece makes me think about things that belong in our lives but haven't fully found their place yet. Not because they're missing, but because they're still becoming a part of the whole. You may be looking at something in your life that is close enough to recognize, but not yet integrated. It may be an idea, a decision, a relationship, or a different version of yourself. Whatever it is, this piece doesn't feel chaotic at all. It feels patient. It feels that something doesn't need to be forced. The structure is already standing. The question is whether you're willing to make room for what wants to join it. So that's your question, group 1. Okay, so now we're going to move on to group 2. And this is group 2. If you chose the second piece, stay with me here. because this piece feels completely different from the first one. The first piece knows where everything belongs. It's simple, it's easy. This one doesn't seem interested in standing still long enough for all of that. The eyes move immediately. So as you look at the piece, you go up, down, across, and back again. This piece is not quiet. And every time I think I found the center, something else pulls my attention somewhere new. There's crossings, interruptions, layers, pieces moving in different directions at the same time. Nothing in this composition exists by itself. Everything touches something else. And this is not a piece about isolation. No, it's a piece about entanglement. The more I look at it, the more it reminds me of moments in life when there isn't just one thing happening. A conversation is connected to a decision. A decision is connected to a responsibility. A responsibility is connected to a relationship. A relationship is connected to history. Pull one thread and 5 others move. You may have chosen this piece because you're standing in the middle of something that can't be reduced to one simple answer. Not because it's confusing, but because it's complex. Those are not the same thing. Confusion and complexity. Because confusion feels like not knowing, while complexity feels like knowing there's many things to be considered at once. So what catches my attention here is that despite the movement, the piece doesn't collapse. It holds together. The different elements push against each other here, as you see. They cross over each other. They interrupt one another. Yet the composition stays intact. There's something reassuring about that. Sometimes we assume that because life feels busy, layered, or demanding, that we're somehow losing our grip. But the piece suggests something different here. It suggests that movement is not the same thing as disorder. The eyes keep searching for that dominant element, a place to land, a final answer. And every time it does, another element enters the conversation. Perhaps that's the invitation here, to stop demanding that one thing explain everything, to stop searching for that single thread that will untangle the entire knot, to recognize that some seasons of life are not asking for simplicity, they're asking for awareness. They're asking you to see the whole picture instead of rushing toward a conclusion. And then there's that small circular form near the center. The thing about it is it doesn't dominate the composition at all. It doesn't demand attention, but once you notice it, It's difficult to ignore it. It's like a quiet point of focus inside all of that movement, not an escape from complexity, just a reminder that complexity still has its center. So as I sit with this piece, I don't come away with answers. No, I come away with respect. Respect for everything that's happening beneath the surface here. Respect for how many moving parts can exist at the same time. And respect for the fact that even when life feels layered, interpreted, crossed, and unfinished, it can still hold together far better than we realize. The question is, are you willing to make room for what wants to join it? All right. So now let's take a look at piece 3. I'm going to kind of try to keep my hand there because there's a little glare coming from my lights, and I want you to be able to see it. So if you chose piece 3, at first glance, this piece seems to be the simplest of all 3. It really does. It seems like there's less happening, less interruption, less competing for attention. But the longer I sit with it, the less simple it becomes. Everything in this piece happens inside a boundary. The black rectangle creates a contained space, a defined space, a place where all the movement lies. And there is movement. There's lines, crossing lines, curves, interrupting straight paths, directions changing, forms overlapping one another. Nothing here travels in a clean, uninterrupted path. And the eye enters the piece looking for order. Did you notice that? You're looking for a root, looking for the beginning and an end. Instead, it finds a network, a web of movement that refuses to resolve itself quickly. And what interests me is that all this activity remains inside this frame. Nothing escapes, nothing spills out. The tension isn't between one element and another. The tension is between movement and containment. This piece makes me think about the private worlds that people carry. We all carry our own private worlds. The conversations that we have that nobody hears, the thoughts that nobody sees, the questions that continue long after the room has gone quiet. Not because something is wrong, not at all, because human beings are constantly trying to make sense of their experiences. We revisit things. We reconsider things. We connect one event to another. We search for meaning. And what catches my attention is that there is no obvious focal point here. No one single shape claiming importance. Everything participates. Everything contributes. The piece asks you to look at the whole rather than becoming attached to one detail. And then there is the copper line beneath it. Separate from everything happening above, it isn't tangled, it isn't crossed, it isn't caught inside the network of lines. It simply exists below it, quietly. Whether it feels like distance, perspective, freedom, clarity, or something else, it's entirely up to you to decide. What interests me is that it remains outside of all of these crossings. Copper piece is outside of all of these crossings, outside the constant interaction, almost as if it occupies a different relationship to everything happening above it. And you may have chosen this piece because something in it felt familiar. Not the image itself, the experience of it. The experience of carrying a world that other people just can't see fully. And most of us spend our lives building connections between memories, events, disappointments, victories, conversations, and decisions. One thing touches another. One experience changes the way we understand the next. And one disappointment influences a new opportunity. The lesson learned in one place shows up somewhere completely different. Over time, a life begins to look less like a straight line and more like this. More like crossings, returns, unexpected connections, paths that double back before moving forward again. And what I appreciate about this piece is that it doesn't judge any of that. It doesn't demand a cleaner story. It doesn't insist that every line be straight. It simply shows what it means to be a person who has lived, to carry history, to carry memory, to keep making meaning from experience. And perhaps that's why you were drawn here. Not because this piece offers an answer, because somewhere inside its tangled paths, you recognized a part of your own. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you on the next read.